Today we're going to talk about how Gen Z is labeled as lazy, but I think that's like the wrong label because I think we're just disinterested. Okay, good. So I guess this is a follow-up to my last video about how Gen Z were labeled as being lazy, but I think that's not the full picture of things. I think we're just disinterested, which can be misperceived or misconstrued and look like we're just being lazy. And I've been thinking about this for a while, and I've struggled to find the right words to kind of capture this mood and feeling, because it's a feeling that's a common denominator for our entire generation. I think older people kind of view it as us being lazy, and I can see why it looks like that. But I think what happens is we start to realize like the reward of working really hard, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't justify the suffering you have to go through in order to continually work. I know like a lot of older people say they won't hire people of Gen Z because we're lazy, we're entitled, all this bullshit. But the difference is maybe we are entitled because we have a higher level of self-esteem than our parents, because I think our parents wanted to teach us that, well, we got mistreated at work, maybe you don't have to. And we kind of woke up to this. It's like such a weird thing for me to understand that just because you're paying someone to go to work, it doesn't mean you can be absolutely disrespectful and treat him really poorly. Like, I don't understand like the psychopaths who are in leadership that don't have this humane, conscious point of view that your workers are human. And the fact that you're in executive power or leadership and you're paying someone their salary, it doesn't mean you can treat them like we're fucking robots, that we don't have feelings. I guess I was raised with okay morals. I don't know, in elementary school and stuff, they read you books about be kind to other people, treat other people the way you want to be treated. And then when you go into the workforce, you realize like the suffering you have to go through doesn't justify your existence at work. Because I feel like our parents' generation, it kind of made sense. Even though you worked like 40, 50 hours at whatever, and you weren't like super passionate about it, work-life balance was better. And number two, you're compensated very fairly. So you're able to make the distinguishment of like, yeah, I might work 40 hours in a job I hate, but I'm able to buy a starter home. I'm able to buy 2 cars and have a stay-at-home wife while saving money and buying like dope shit. Versus our generation realized, number one, we can't afford anything. And that's not because we're underqualified or we're not as smart. I think we work extremely hard. And I think this shows in the statistics of how competitive elite colleges have become. So the high school experience is kind of different because high school was very stressful for me. It wasn't like a time of just partying, having fun like you see in the movies in the 70s or 80s. It was like, how do I get a really good score on my SAT, my AP test, and as well as the ACT, as well as doing extracurriculars so I look like a good candidate to go to a good school. So high school isn't a time to explore and hang out anymore. It's like a time to get into elite college. And let's say you do make it in this college. Number one, either you have really rich parents that pays for your school because they were able to save because of work environment and economy that they were raised in. It made sense. But now let's say you take out hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loan with crazy interest at the age of like 17 or 18 when you finally get into college. That's an insane decision, first of all. And let's say you major in business or something like that. So you're working extremely diligently, just trying to pass your course, get good grades. And by the time you graduate of 4 years of working, let's say you do internships junior year of college and then your senior year or whatever you do, and you're entering the job market now. And because you've done all these things, you've had a 4.0 like GPA, staying up late, studying, working hard, networking, and then you get rejected. So it's almost like all the work you've done for the past 8 years, granted, you started in high school, now you're like, 22 and you graduate. You spent 8 years of your life grinding away, just stressed the fuck out, because now everyone is competing for these like entry-level jobs. And I touched upon this in my previous video. Entry-level jobs are, I don't really know how to describe like what they are. It seems as if you need 4 to 5 years in that industry already, but you can't get that experience because people won't hire you. And then let's say you do get the job and it pays really low. It's like 40K, and let's say on a high side, 65K. Well, on the high side of 65K, if you live in a high cost of living area, let's say Washington, D.C., LA, New York, Seattle, that doesn't really go anywhere. So You went to a good college, you did everything right by the books, and now you're at the bottom of the hierarchy at your corporation, and you just work. And you realize that the people that you respected in the past, okay, you think these people who are adults have morals, they're striving, they're altruistic, they're trying to become the best version of themselves every single day, as well as respect your time. But instead of that happening, we're deemed as lazy, and we're treated as kids still, which we are young, but we're not treated as young professionals. And it's always about output, not who you are. And the basic worker wants three things: good compensation, work-life balance, and respect and dignity. We want to be respected. And if that means we're entitled because we don't want to be mistreated, or treated poorly, I don't have an answer. Maybe in previous generations, it was okay to just be a fucking asshole to every single person because you were a middle manager or you're an executive. I don't understand how you can live with yourself. Because I know when I treat people poorly, whether it's at work or not, you can get pissed off, right? But it's like the professionals. We're young professionals. We're professionals at the workplace. It's like you kind of have to breathe, work through it, and you can get your point across without just being an absolute dick. And I think the return to office mandates is complete bullshit. Our generation wants to work, but we realize we don't want to spend our prime years working at a place that will lay us off inevitably when the economy gets bad. What's the point of risking everything, missing out on love, missing out on adventures, missing out on time with your family, your health, or just downtime to work at a job that you don't love, that pays minimal, that will lay you off? And we don't want to go back in the office. It's not because we don't like the interactions. We just don't want to be caught up in this toxic work environment because it just drains your soul. We have proved through the pandemic we can work really well efficiently on teams because we have that work-life balance. It's not like we're being constantly monitored. We don't want that. And while, yes, there might be some people that abuse it, I don't think that's the case for Gen Z. We get our work done. We appreciate, understand it's a privilege to work from home. But the fact that everyone has to go back in the office, with the salaries that people make, dealing with traffic, gas, insurance, getting food, and just the waste of time, I can see why we're labeled as lazy, because we don't want to participate in this market or economy or this work culture. And the fake HR severance bullshit of we are a family. It's not true. The fact that you have to justify your work life as family because you're away from your own family during the daytime because you're a fucking workaholic and you love your job because you get compensated really well. I'm talking about people in leadership. It doesn't mean everyone going to work, their priority is work. Sometimes work is just a means to live. It's just we clock our hours in, we want to do well, and we just want to leave it behind and enjoy other areas of our life. And I think that's an important thing is work isn't all there is for us. And that makes sense why we're kind of partial to the gig economy of Uber, DoorDash, being a barista, or let's say doing content creation, YouTube, TikTok, drop shipping, whatever people do our age. They do a lot of cool shit. It makes sense why, because we have control of our own time. We can choose when to work and we get compensated fairly. But working in a corporate place where you're just available for 40 to 60 hours, that's not sexy. And considering our generation's super lonely, this destroys mental health because at least our parents, when they were working, our parents had third spaces and they had a lot of money and they could do a lot of cool shit with that money. But now it's we're just trying to save and just survive. And a lot of entry-level workers, you can probably understand this. It's you're not thriving. You just make enough so you can just scrape by until hopefully you get another promotion where you're kind of struggling a little less, and you have to struggle and eat shit for 5 years just to get a place where you're comfortable but you're not rich. And that's a really difficult thing that older people don't understand is my wife and I are high paid individuals, but we still can't buy a house in where we live because every house around us is $1 million. And it's not it's not dope. It's not an MTV Cribs video. It's just an older house that was probably $400K in 2016, but somehow is $1 million now. And it's not we couldn't afford that. We could, but we would be pushing it And the liability of a mortgage, repairs, it doesn't make any sense. So now that we're not buying assets, we're just renting everything. Everything's on a subscription base. So if we don't really have like tangible assets, I don't really know what's going to happen. And I can see why people are pissed off. But labeling us as like lazy, it may look like that. That's the dumbass response, I would say. That's a dumbass approach. Why don't you look a little deeper and realize that we're just disinterested and there's like a fundamental issue in the workplace. We don't want to like be BFFs with you guys, people in management in any corporation. We want to just work and leave. That's why quiet quitting is a thing. Because we understand that working your balls off doesn't mean you get a promotion, you get a raise. It just means you've raised the bar and you get compensated the same. They throw more responsibility onto you. And then when there comes like, let's say you miss your quarterly earnings, or let's say, I don't know, layoffs happen, they throw you under the bus. So now you've wasted your prime years doing something you hated just to get tossed to the curb. No real safety net. It makes sense why. And I'm frustrated because I don't really have an answer. Because you should be thankful to have a job, because the job market's absolutely fucked right now. It's so bad. So in my area in Maryland, the federal workforce is like, a lot of people got laid off. And prior to this, the private market was already cooked. There wasn't really that many jobs to begin with. So now you have an influx of government workers applying for the same jobs in the private sector. So now you're competing with new grads. And new grads, how do you compete with a government worker who's been working for 30 years, has all these degrees and work experience, and they're willing to just settle for less because they have these big pensions and it's not the big deal when you're just trying to get like started in your life? I don't really like have an answer, because it's like, if you do have a job, you have to be thankful for it because you can't really find another job. But at the same time, you hate it and there's not like anything else to do. There's not like an exit strategy. It's like you just got to keep doing it until something changes. Because a lot of people can't find work right now. And that's the weird thing, is because like you can't really win in this scenario. It's either being unemployed, or you work a job you hate and you get employed with the risk of getting laid off, or start something on the side until that grows. And I understand like not everyone is in a position to do that. So I guess that's why our generation as a collective, we're just apathetic to what happens. You can't call the generation that's going to carry your old ass pieces of shit. When you're tired and old, we're going to be the ones getting taxed out of our minds to keep this economy. Our generation can't even make eye contact with the opposite sex, go on a date, have sex. There's something wrong in dating. So I don't really know like what's going to happen. Because there's a declining birth rate, the population, it can't support Social Security, it can't support anything. And I don't think there's an answer. But if you're older and you're watching this video, have some empathy and realize that we're trying to have your back. But we can't have yours if you don't protect our asses. We're not lazy. We just have a little more respect for our fellow human being also struggling. But it's really hard to have empathy for the boomers when they don't give a shit about us. Because it's hard to justify your suffering when the reward just isn't there. It puts you in a cognitive dissonance that you're quite upset about. I hope you guys enjoyed what I presented. And I wish I had more of a concrete answer. But I had to express this like anger that I was trying to find the right words for. And I genuinely hope you guys found some value from this. Comment your experience or add anything you think I missed. Thank you guys.